Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, James Fight, Sarah Cowgill, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Well, folks, it was only a matter of time. Parents are pulling their kids out of public schools due to COVID mandates, critical race theory, and what many see as a socialist-inspired curriculum. Kids today have no idea how our government works, how to do math without creating an alternative universe, and putting up with instructors' political views when it comes to grading a paper. As time goes on, our public schools appear to be failing the basics of education. News reports are showing enrollment down all across the nation in government schools, but near to overflowing in private institutions. And homeschooling has taken off like a rocket ship. Any way you look at it, at the numbers, they just aren't good for public schools. Jim, I know you and Heather homeschool. So do you think others have finally decided the vax mandates, the mask requirements, and questionable curricula just might be the way to go?
Well, first off, credit where credit's due. Heather handles most of that. But yeah, our reasons for homeschooling well before COVID really opened the window into what's going on in schools was that we didn't want the state raising our children. And, we were blessed to be in a situation where one of us could stay home and teach the kids.
Does the Fight School have mask mandates? Vaccination
Absolutely
mandate?
Not. No, it doesn't. But I do hope that more parents will go this way. I mean, you made the point, this is bad news for public schools, but it may be very good news for American children and for the future of this country.
Andrew, you've got little ones, but they're preschool, right?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with James. My wife and I were discussing of homeschooling our kids, or putting to at least a private school. If I may brag, my kids are 3, but they're functioning at a 4-year-old level. If I put them in a government-run school, I'm worried that all the work that my wife and I have put in is just going to ruin them. They're going to become like the rest of the other kids, who've been in these indoctrination centers for so many years. But when it comes to school, I think, Terry McAuliffe, who's running for governor, his view that parents should not have any say in how children are taught is exactly how so many government-run schools believe. The COVID really opened the eyes of so many parents when kids were in these Zoom classrooms and the things that kids were taught, and the parents were just right next to their kid, and they realized, what the heck is going on in these classrooms? Why did I know about this before? So COVID was really a blessing in disguise to improve, hopefully, in the future of the education system.
Jeff, you've got a couple of girls in school.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a net positive. But one thing that was interesting to me is that it seems like even groups that traditionally didn't homeschool very often are now homeschooling at a very significant clip. I mean, Black families at the beginning of the pandemic, 3.3% of Black families were homeschooling. By fall of last year, that number jumped to 16.1%. And I can see why. I mean, there are a lot of different issues with schools. I mean, there's the critical race theories issues, there's the vaccine mandates and all that stuff. But Black families are also removing their children because a lot of times they might be in an area where their children experience racism from other children or even from administrators, and the administration doesn't do anything about it. So then they just say, well, forget it. Also, there's the fact that Black families are not confident in our public schools to teach their children what they need to know. So I think this is a great thing. I mean, it almost seems to be like there's going to be more of a movement to not abandon public schools, but to pull your kids out of there, do homeschooling, or if you can get them into private schools, that would be even better. So I think that this might be the start of something very positive.
Jeff makes an excellent point about how abysmal the schools are. A lot of these inner city schools, they have horrible track records of teaching kids. There's a great quote from the great economist Thomas Sowell, and he said that, I think of what an improvement it would be if our public school could just achieve mediocrity. And that's an indictment of how terrible these government schools are. So Jeff is 100% correct on that point.
Yeah, I talked to a friend of mine, Lenny McAllister, who he actually heads the coalition of public charter schools in Pennsylvania, and he went over all the problems that these inner city schools have, and it is atrocious. It's obscene. Like it is obscene. I can't even describe to you the level of ineptitude, the level of corruption, and just the whole cycle of poverty that this helps to reinforce.
Sarah, am I right in saying that you actually live in a one-room schoolhouse?
It's a 2-room schoolhouse with a lot of extra rooms.
But seriously,
but they actually taught subjects there at the time.
Yeah, but seriously, Christian schools are really, I mean, they're overflowing and you have to wait to get in now. And, they're twice as big as they were meant to be.
Well, I think what the pandemic has shown us is that A, teaching is difficult. B, it can be done. And a lot of folks around here have been doing that for a long time anyway. And they have like little support groups of homeschool, and their kids still participate in all the sports that they want to participate in, at the local public schools. So it's not like they're missing out socially, but they're sure not getting indoctrinated. And the one thing that I have a friend who has school-age children, and she pays money for books and this and that and the other thing for this public school, and it racks up to hundreds of dollars a year. And those kids never have a book. They can't even track where the books come from. So there's a lot of money going into the public school system from parents and guardians that nobody can account for. So I think that you have come to a boiling point where it's just easier to find a school with stricter guidelines, find a school with some rules and regulations that are not off the charts, to find a school that will teach your child without teaching them your opinion. And that's what's going on.
Well, Andrew, it's interesting because I think the economics of public schools are going to be in trouble. Of course, this is why they've never wanted to support school vouchers. But I wonder if they're going to start mandating public school, like you have to go to a public school,
Well, yeah, they have to justify their $12,000 per pupil per year the government spending on this, because that's how much they spend. They have such terrible records, but they spend one of the most of all OECD countries. It's absurd to me, because in the end, government schools exist for 2 reasons: indoctrination of socialist dogma and ironclad jobs for teachers. It's nothing but a public works program for millions of teachers across the United States today. Despite these unions purport, schools are not about the children. They don't exist for the education of children. It's not, well, somebody please think of the children. It's for other nefarious means. The government school system is atrocious. It should be abolished and let the private sector take care of it, because they have a much better performance record of teaching kids than the government ever could.
And Lisa, I think what you said is very predictive. I think that you're on the right track there. I mean, as far as them mandating public schools, they may not do it outright, but they will find ways to force parents to put their kids in public schools. I remember a few years ago, there was a controversy in California because they were passing legislation, and I don't know if they actually got it passed, but they were trying to pass measures specifically designed to make it harder for parents to homeschool their children. So I think that will be the backlash from the statist side when they start seeing more people homeschooling their kids or getting them into private schools. They're not going to take this line down.
Yeah, remember John Stossel? He had all those education specials on his show on both Fox and ABC, and he would speak to the unions, and they'd be so violent about him. They'd be so vicious and say, "Oh, you hate the children. Oh, you're all for corporations. How could you want corporations inside?" But then he provides them a data of how better charter schools are, and they get so defensive about it by saying, "Oh, you want profit before students," which is completely absurd at this time. And also one more thing too: if they have COVID mandates and you don't get the COVID shots for your kids, and they kick you out of school, do you get your taxes back? Do you get a refund on all the money you put into the system? Probably not.
Absolutely
exactly.
not.
I mean, you're stuck funding it one way or another. Well, folks, it seems like we all believe education is in major need of an overhaul, from health mandates to teaching the 3 R's. Let's see if this trend continues. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform: YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 for the entire year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters.